So Bill walked over some of my speech, Bill, all right, because there's so many good things that you did, and I want to touch on them too, but this is my third time as chairman of this board, and I'm convinced this job gets tougher every year. Bill, you handled a difficult 2022 with grace and poise. I don't know that there's ever been a chairman of this board in the public eye more than you over the past year, and you made us proud with your transparency, integrity, and impassioned defense of democracy. You can speak on my behalf anytime. I thank you for that. And I want Pam and your daughters to know you need to take a little bit of time off, but I really could use your leadership as we talk about what we've gone through. And I'm more than happy that you get out there and keep doing it. So thank you. I'm not a big speech maker, but I have a few thoughts to share about the year ahead and what I'd like to accomplish. This board has invested a lot of money in our community since 2020, and we're going to see a big return on many of those investments in 2023. I'm going to read off some statistics because I don't think residents fully understand how much this board and our county staff have done to help people recover from the effects of the pandemic. $65 million towards affordable housing, $45 million towards affordable healthcare infrastructure, $34.6 million to expand reliable broadband service. And again, thank you for that, Bill. That was a priority of yours. And you, Steve. $14.5 million towards workforce development. Incredibly important. And that's just to name a few. A lot of these projects will be completed in 2023, so I plan to be at a lot of ribbon cuttings. And if they're in your districts, I plan on you guys being there with me as we cut the ribbon on these projects and really offer services to our citizens. But of course, it's not just about the buildings, it's about the people. My colleague Tom Galvin gets this. He's made it his mission from day one to understand how we're using the federal recovery dollars we've been given so they don't get lost in bureaucracy, but go toward real, actual help for residents in need of affordable housing. And I thank you, Tom. It's been a priority of yours. I appreciate it, and you're going to be working hard. And Tom, you have no idea, because I was set up for this job as a newbie by of course, my former colleague, and he leaned into me a lot on the backside on phone calls, and you're going to be getting those same phone calls from me. Okay. One area that's really important to me is job training and career development. Maybe you've seen the headlines in recent months about major company after major company setting up shop in the valley, bringing thousands of jobs. I, for one, love to see it. What you may not know is behind the scenes, it's our county workforce development team that's helping train many of these people that these companies will hire. I want us to invest even more into this effort. Learning a skill and getting a better job doesn't just pay the bills, it feels very good. I give a lot of credit to Local First Arizona for helping us meet the demands of a new economy. The support they provide to growing local businesses is invaluable. Kimber Lanning is a force for good, and we need more people like her. And I would like to call out Local First, because in a very tough time for this board, Kimber Lanning got together with her board and gave a show of support for us and how we run elections and how we do our jobs, because she gets to see the entire specter of the county workforce at work for all of us. So I appreciated that very much, and I know my board did as well. I appreciate leaders who get things done, but also keep a long-term perspective, who understand that our growth must be sustainable so it doesn't threaten quality of life. My colleague Jack Sellers is at the top of that list. He's advocating for a comprehensive transportation plan to replace Proposition 400. This isn't a nice to have, it's a must have for our future residents and the success of this region moving forward. I thank you for not letting us forget it, Jack, and it's so important. And this is what I have in my mind. I'd love you to be my vice chair this year. So thank you. And Jack knows what it's like to be a vice chair because he's been my vice chair before. So it doesn't take a lot of phone calls. He works hard. And I really hope that you start training some others on this board about what that's like to be a vice chair. I hope my friends in the business community can provide some of the political muscle it's going to take to get this done. We talked to a lot of business leaders. We need your help. There's a lot of you that own trucks. There's a lot of you that have employees on the road. You guys help us. You need to help us expand this infrastructure so we can keep this county out of gridlock. Rising costs are tough on families. There's no doubt about it. And while we have done a lot to ease the burden with more than $40 million in rent and utility assistance distributed and millions more provided to food banks and other social safety net programs, I believe there's one area where our region needs to step up. It's in homelessness. This is a crisis, and it's getting worse. And too many people turn their heads and look away from their fellow humans. Now I'm proud of what the county has done, investing in solutions that help the entire region. In 2022, we provided more than 8,400 people with emergency shelter, bridge housing, rapid rehousing, or outreach to help get them off the streets. And we launched a new program, a partnership with landlords, so that more than 200 properties in our county are now working with homeless individuals to offer housing rather than shutting them out. But look at the tents and the camps and people on the sides of the road, and it's clear there's more work to be done. We need all hands on deck with this. We need cities and towns, state government, business partners, nonprofits, churches, everybody. And I think there's a real window to make real progress in '23. Because look, while the political environment is pretty toxic in a lot of ways, the voters of Arizona have spoken. They have delivered Arizona a divided government. That means no party and no political movement gets everything they want. So maybe we can collaborate to solve a few real problems. Maybe we can get back to the give and take that makes this country work. I'm looking to my colleague, Steve Gallardo. I'm a lifelong Republican and Steve is a diehard Democrat. But we agree that addressing homelessness needs to be a priority from an economic standpoint, from a public safety standpoint, and because every human deserves to be treated with dignity. I'm confident Steve will be a good partner as we work with the legislature and the Hobbs administration to find ways to get people off the streets and into a stable place. Thank you, Steve, for all the work you do in our community. I'm going to make you work on it, though, Steve.
I'm up for it.
Water is another issue where we just can't retreat to our partisan corners. Don't get me wrong, I love all the growth that's happening in the West Valley and around the county. It's great to see new people, new ideas, and new businesses. But we need to be taking a long, hard look at water usage for these new developments. For a while, I felt like we, as a state, were too restrictive on development. Now I want to make sure the pendulum doesn't swing too far in the other direction. I appreciate Governor Hobbs being transparent about the water shortfall in the far West Valley and making a public report that lays out the challenge. And this happened the other day. I appreciate her giving me a heads up about this before her State of the State address, not after. She actually called me an hour before her State of the State and said, there's a portion of the speech I'm going to make that's going to affect the West Valley. So that's incredible graciousness. That sounds like we need to work together. That's the type of collaboration and communication we need to address this critical issue. Counties follow the laws set by the state legislature. I'm hopeful lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have ideas that can help us protect our water without stifling economic growth. And I think all of us on this board would all welcome legislative attention to these wildcat developments, where people move into homes in unincorporated parts of the county without a long-term water source. A fix is needed at the state level. We're ready to hear about it. I know certain lawmakers have ideas about our election system. They've been extremely vocal. So this board wants to talk. Rather than issue subpoenas, rather than file endless lawsuits, rather than mean tweet disinformation about and displeasure, let's sit down and have a conversation about real changes to election laws that will make our state the envy of others. Looking at you, Stephen Richer. Instead of listening to a guy who sells pillows, let's bring people who actually run elections to the table. Let's start with a shared set of facts and go from there. Let's treat all 15 counties the same and come up with improvements that we can implement in 2024 or future elections. I'm willing to put past conflicts aside to do this. But if you're going to lie about our election staff, if you're going to falsely accuse us of breaking laws that you write, if you're going to ignore facts for political gain, then we have nothing to discuss. I am going to make sure we are accountable for the printer malfunctions some county vote centers experienced during the 2022 general election. You want to know how seriously we take this? We've hired former Arizona Supreme Court Justice Ruth McGregor to lead an independent investigation. She's going to hire a team of independent experts to find out why the machines that printed the ballots and the tabulators while reading the ballots in August had trouble reading them in November. Why did they not have a problem in August, but we have a problem in November? We're going to get down to the bottom of it. But I also expect others to be held accountable for things that they say and do, which stoke fear and make people doubt a secure system. I'm pleased to see that the courts are doing that now, imposing sanctions on attorneys who bring frivolous lawsuits, claiming fraud or malfeasance, dismissing efforts to overturn accurate election results. Accountability is a two-way street, and we will do our part. The last thing I want to say today is to our staff. You are making a positive impact. All these county programs and services we talk about, affordable housing, job training, public health, elections, that's you doing the work. That's you making the difference in people's lives. Okay, Scott, Michelle, I'm going to go off script for a second. Oh, God, hide under the table. Speaking of that, I think we've not done the greatest job listening and having the opportunity to hear some of our staff talk. The pandemic has really chilled us getting together and talking, and we need to get together and talk, and the public needs to hear us talk. We have a lot of meetings, and we do a lot of things outside the public vision, not because we want to, but because we're here for limited times and we're trying to get things across. I don't think we've had a great opportunity to hear from public health like we did prior to the pandemic, or even during the pandemic, our election staff, our sheriff's department, our county attorney. So I will be calling and asking you guys to come and make some presentations about what's going on. The medical examiner's office, you know, and I'm going to touch on this. Just a couple months ago, I asked Congressman Debbie Lesko to come to the medical examiner's office to see what they do. And to look for just federal funds. We are a large community, and I don't think our Congress people even know what we do when it comes to servicing our local communities. I was racking my brain, like in 2020, I made a chairman's address, and I touch on this quite often. In 2020, I made a chairman's address, and I left off something because I didn't know what the future held, and it was the term COVID-19 or pandemic. We had no idea in January, and in March we were in it. So I was trying to think, how can I predict a little bit in the future? What is a key word that I think that the county might want to get ahead of? And here's the key word: fentanyl. The fentanyl crisis is killing people. We are being devastated. Families are being devastated by this. I reached out to Sheriff Penzone, so thank you, Sheriff. I reached out to Sheriff, much on the line of what Governor Hobbs did. I'm going to give you a heads up, and I'm asking for a little bit of communication. So I talked to Sheriff Penzone yesterday. I called Rachel Mitchell. She picked up her phone. She's awfully busy, just like the sheriff, and she heard what I had to say. We need to get in front. We're a little bit behind. We need to get in front of this fentanyl pandemic. And I asked them, can you work together? And if you need to bring in the court system with sentencing, If you need to bring in the education, the superintendents, and during my chairman's address, Steve, I'm hoping, I'm not going to finish it up because I want you to make a couple statements. I attended Rachel Mitchell's meeting in front of parents at Independence High School a couple months back, and it was because I had my son coming from Brophy baseball practice and said, hey, I want to come in and I want to listen to our county attorney. Scared the hell out of me about what we are dealing with as a community. And unfortunately, here's the real unfortunate part. I went there not as a chairman. I wasn't chairman, not as a supervisor. I went there as a parent just to hear it. And I had my son with me. Scared me so much that I grabbed a Narcan nasal spray and asked my son, please put this in your car. Not that I think that my son, because I've been giving him horror stories, not that I think my son is susceptible to fentanyl, but quite possibly he might be at a party someday. And these people are, to me, merchants of death. So, I want this county to put a flag in the ground and say, we're not going to do it here. There's going to be severe repercussions if you're going to try to kill our kids. So this is a year as a parent coming up that I will have a grade schooler, a high schooler, and a college student. And all of these kids, this stuff is all around. They're finding millions of doses on good kids that are being used as drug mules because they want that $10,000. So I cannot wait for you to tell us what's going on. And I can't wait to figure out what you need from us as a county taxpayer to eradicate this. So, Steve, you told me a story that almost made me drop my taco as I was, if you could take us through that for a second. I think it's important until we get to this informal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I know you're going right off your script, but it's so important. That's why I'm so appreciative that you're making these comments. But yeah, this is something that the discussions I've had most recently with superintendents across the valley, not just in my supervisory districts, but all our supervisory districts. I work real closely with quite a few superintendents, and all of them sharing the same similar stories. This terrible drug is not just on our street corners, it's getting into our schools. And you're seeing more and more folks being caught with this drug in our schools. You're seeing more and more young people being recruited to sell this type of terrible drug. This is a situation that is now invading our schools. Schools were always a safe spot. That was a safe place. It's where kids go. They're able to be themselves, educate, learn, be with friends. And I think we have a responsibility to continue this type of dialogue. We've had a nice dialogue during lunch, but continue to work with our law enforcement professionals to be able to really start to look, what can we do? Not just Maricopa County, but the municipality, state government. How do we work together to ensure that this type of drug is kept not only outside our school, but out of our community? What type of education can we continue to push for our parents, our educators, even our students, our kids? And when you have a community where so many young people are faced with so many challenges economically, socially, and then they buy into some of the craziness that they're hearing, and they want to be able to support their families. They want to be able to buy certain stuff, and then they get caught up in a racket. And you're seeing more and more of it now into our schools. And it's just not urban school districts, it's across the state. And if you start bringing educators to it, they'll tell you horror stories after horror stories that they're seeing on a regular basis. And even my conversation with my own superintendent, Dr. Gaston, Dr. Gaston, these are only the situations that we know about. There are so many more that are out there. So anyway, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman. This is your time, but I look forward to working with you, our law enforcement, superintendent, whatever we need in order to start to advance this type of discussion and really start to put a plan in action where our kids are safe, our communities are safe, and we get rid of this terrible drug.
Great, my first entry basically outside of representing our farm and agriculture was I was put on the Meth Advisory Council under Governor Napolitano, and they reminded me that every decade seems to bring a new drug and a new crisis, but the crisis continues to getting drugs that are more addictive and cheaper, and that is extremely scary as an economic model. And we've not seen anything like this with a drug like this, with fentanyl coming out of labs to kill our population. So I look forward to working in that space and getting something started, that this is the county that hopefully will be the shining star when it comes to eradication of such a dangerous drug to our children. Okay. So, sorry, Michelle, you can get up from under the table. Scott, it's okay to come back up. I think you saw in the video we introduced the new county logo. This organization is about people. This is our home too. Our roots go deep and we stand tall for those we serve and for each other. I can tell you with your hard work, the fantastic leadership of Joy and her team, the collaboration with our fellow elected officials, and by the grace of God, 2023 will be a year where we can make lasting positive difference for people in Maricopa County. I am very honored to be your chairman. Thank you for your votes. I thank you all very much. And as Governor Hobbs said, we're going to be getting to work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.